887 degrees Fahrenheit. This is not the temperature inside a blast furnace, but the average day on our closest planetary neighbor. You are looking at the final moments of the last spacecraft to ever touch the soil of Venus. It represents the closing chapter of a brutal and epic saga, where the Soviet Union attempted to conquer the most treacherous environment in our solar system. But why? After such monumental effort and technological sacrifice, did we simply walk away? What did those Soviet cameras capture in those fleeting minutes before their lenses melted into nothingness today? We uncover the haunting reality of what was truly found on Venus and the dark reason why humanity has never dared to return to its surface. Stay with me until the end, because the images and sounds you are about to experience changed our understanding of the universe forever. While Mars dominates our headlines today with dreams of colonization and silver rovers, the early days of the space race held a different prize. To the scientists of the 1960s, Mars was an open book, its dry and frozen surface easily viewed through a telescope. But Venus was a mystery, a planet that knew how to hide its secrets behind an impenetrable veil of thick clouds. In the 1960s, the human imagination was fueled by hope and mystery. Because Venus was closer to the sun and hidden by clouds, many scientists envisioned a lush, tropical paradise beneath the veil, perhaps even home to giant insects and alien reptiles. But the legendary astronomer Carl Sagan dared to suggest a more terrifying truth. He believed those clouds were not a sign of life, but evidence of a greenhouse effect that had spiraled out of control, turning the entire planet into a global furnace. Determined to claim the prize, the Soviet Union launched the Venera 1 and 2 missions in 1961. During this era of the Cold War, these missions were more than scientific exploration. They were raw demonstrations of power, working with primitive tools like slide rules. Russian engineers launched their probes atop ballistic missiles. However, both initial attempts suffered total system failures before they could send back any meaningful data. The Americans finally broke through in 1962 when the Mariner 2 probe performed the first successful flyby of another planet. The data it transmitted shocked the world and proved Carl Sagan right. Venus was not a paradise, it was a nightmare. Temperatures in the upper atmosphere reached 237 degrees Celsius, twice the boiling point of water. Faced with this impossibly hostile environment, NASA made a strategic decision to abandon the idea of landing on Venus, turning their focus toward the Moon and Mars. This left the surface of the morning star wide open for the Soviets to seek absolute glory. By 1966, while the global focus had shifted toward the Moon, the Soviet Union remained obsessed with Venus. They engineered the Venera 3 and 4 probes to be far heavier and more resilient than their predecessors. Venera 3 made history through pure force. Although it failed during transit, its trajectory was so accurate that it struck the planet like a cannonball, marking the first time a man-made object ever impacted another world. The true breakthrough came in 1967 with Venera 4. It released a capsule that descended via parachute, giving us our first glimpse inside the atmosphere of another planet. The initial data was eerie, at high altitudes. The climate seemed pleasant, but as the probe sank, the pressure became soul-crushing. On Venus, the air is so dense it behaves more like a liquid than a gas. After 90 minutes of descent, the signal from Venera 4 simply went dark. It had been flattened like a tin can by the weight of the atmosphere before it could ever reach the soil. In 1969, Venera 5 and 6 were sent into the same abyss, only to be imploded in less than 60 minutes. Once again confirming the terrifying reality of this planetary nightmare. Would you give up after watching your most expensive machines destroyed in minutes? The Soviets refused to yield. For the Venera 7 mission, they changed the game, building a probe with a reinforced steel outer shell and an inner sphere made of titanium to protect the delicate instruments. In August 1970, disaster struck again when the parachute failed, either tearing or melting away during the descent. The probe plummeted through the thick atmosphere in a freefall, hitting the ground at 60 kilometers per hour. On Earth, scientists feared the end had come, but miraculously, the probe survived the impact and continued to transmit. What it found was a confirmation of absolute terror. The temperature on the surface was 475 degrees Celsius. That is hotter than the inside of a professional pizza oven and more than enough heat to melt lead. At this point, the United States had already stepped onto the Moon. The Soviet Union knew they needed something massive to ensure they were not left behind in the history books. They decided they would be the first to photograph the surface of this literal hell. By the year 1975, the landscape of the space race had shifted dramatically. While the United States had already successfully placed boots on the moon, the Soviet Union recognized that they needed a monumental victory to maintain their standing in the history of human exploration. They set their sights on a goal that seemed technically impossible at the time they decided they would be the very first to capture a photograph from the surface of another world. To achieve this, the Soviet engineers designed and launched Venera 9, a machine that was a radical departure from anything built before it. This new probe was a massive feat of engineering, weighing a staggering 5 tons. To put that into perspective for your audience, that is roughly the same weight as a full-grown African elephant. Every ounce of that weight was necessary to survive the descent, because previous missions had seen their parachutes melt or fail in the extreme heat. The engineers developed a brilliant and unconventional solution. They equipped the probe with a massive impact disc and a specialized aerodynamic brake that looked like a giant metallic hat.
Agreed.
The physics behind this design were ingenious,
module.
because the atmosphere on Venus is so incredibly thick, acting more like water than air. This metallic hat provided enough resistance to slow the 5-ton craft down for a safe landing without the need for traditional parachutes that might fail in the corrosive clouds. It was a gamble that relied on the very hostility of the planet to ensure a soft touchdown. Then, the impossible finally happened. Venera 9 survived the descent and successfully transmitted the first photograph ever taken on the surface of another planet back to Earth. What the world saw was not a paradise, but a stark and haunting reality. The image revealed a landscape of sharp, fragmented rocks surrounded by a material that appeared to be dark sand. It was a desolate, alien graveyard of stone. Just days after this historic success, Venera 10 followed, touching down in a different region characterized by ancient, solidified lava, confirming that the surface was a vast, unforgiving expanse of volcanic plains. These 2 missions provided humanity with its first true eyes on the ground of our sister planet, proving that while Venus was real, it was more alien than anyone had dared to imagine. By the year 1981, the Soviet space program reached its technological zenith with the launch of Venera 13. This mission was not just another attempt to survive the surface. It was a sophisticated scientific laboratory designed to peel back the final layers of mystery from this golden, hellish world. While previous missions had given us grainy, black and white glimpses of a rock-strewn desert, Venera 13 was built to bring the colors and the very sounds of Venus to human ears and eyes for the first time in history. As the lander touched down, the cameras began to click, sending back data that would stun the scientific community for the first time. We saw Venus in its true, haunting colors. The sky was not blue like ours, but a thick, oppressive yellow, heavy with the haze of sulfur. Below, the ground was a dark, somber orange, a landscape that looked as though it had been forged in the deepest embers of a dying fire. It was a world where light itself seemed to struggle to penetrate the dense, acidic atmosphere. But Venera 13 carried something even more profound than a color camera. It carried a microphone. For the first time, humanity was able to listen to the heartbeat of another planet. What was recorded was a low, ghostly roar, the sound of the Venusian wind. Imagine standing in an environment where the air is so thick that it exerts a pressure 92 times greater than what we feel on Earth. To be on the surface of Venus is like being 1 kilometer deep under the Earth's oceans. But instead of cold water, you are surrounded by superheated air and clouds of concentrated sulfuric acid, the same corrosive substance found in car batteries. The microphone captured the mechanical groans of the lander as it battled the crushing weight of the atmosphere, punctuated by the eerie, muffled whistling of the wind moving through the dense gas. It was a lonely, violent symphony from a world that seemed to actively reject the presence of human machines. While the cameras and microphones worked, a mechanical drill reached out and bored into the Venusian crust. The analysis of the samples revealed that the planet was a volcanic graveyard, composed of solidified volcanic ash and basalt, strikingly similar to the rock found at the very bottom of Earth's deepest oceans. This mission was the pinnacle of Soviet engineering, a brief window of 2 hours where we truly knew what it was like to stand in the heart of the furnace. Shortly after, Venera 14 followed, and becoming the final spacecraft to touch the soil and send back images before the silence of the surface reclaimed everything. Since that day, the surface of Venus has remained untouched, a silent testament to an era of brutal exploration and the sheer resilience of the human spirit against the most extreme conditions in the known universe. Since the transmission of the final images from the Venera 14 lander, a heavy and absolute silence has reigned over the scorched surface of Venus. For over 40 years, no human machine has touched that ground, and the golden clouds have reclaimed their secrets. But this leads us to the most haunting question of all. After achieving such impossible technological feats, why did we stop? Why did humanity turn its back on our closest neighbor to focus almost entirely on the red dust of Mars? The answer is a sobering mixture of cold economics and the unforgiving laws of physics. Every mission to the surface of Venus is a monumental effort that yields a tragically short scientific return. To understand this, we must look at the staggering contrast between our planetary targets. While a modern rover on the surface of Mars can endure for many years, traveling across the landscape and performing thousands of experiments, the most resilient probe ever sent to Venus survived for only 2 hours before it was cooked and crushed by the environment. Engineers are forced to engage in a desperate race against time. They must pack a lifetime of scientific discovery into a window of just 120 minutes. For a space agency, the math is brutal. It is an incredible challenge to convince politicians and taxpayers to invest billions of dollars into a project that will be destroyed in less time than it takes to watch a feature film. When the Soviet Union collapsed in the 1990s, the financial and political priorities of Russia shifted away from such high-risk, high-cost cosmic exploration, effectively ending the most ambitious chapter of Venusian discovery. Yet, despite the silence, Venus remains the greatest mystery of our solar system. It stands as a dark mirror, a terrifying reflection of what our own Earth could have been, or more accurately, what it might become if we lose control of our own climate. Scientists look at the runaway greenhouse effect of Venus and see a cautionary tale. It is a world where the atmosphere became a trap, turning a potential paradise into a global kiln. This sister planet is a brutal and constant reminder of exactly how fragile the balance of life truly is, and how completely impiedoso the universe can be when that balance is lost. The story of the Venera probes is more than just a timeline of metal and fire. It is a profound testament to human resilience. It represents the peak of our species' willingness to face the most extreme and impossible conditions imaginable in the pursuit of knowledge. Those Soviet engineers and scientists looked into the mouth of a literal hell and decided to build a camera that could see inside it. They proved that even in a place where the air is acid and the ground melts lead, human curiosity can find a way to leave its mark. If you found the discovery of this desert of acid and fire as fascinating as I did, please take a moment to leave a like on this video. Now, I want to hear from you. In an age where we are obsessed with reaching Mars, do you believe it is worth the billions of dollars to return to the surface of Venus with our modern technology? Or should we leave the morning star to its silence and focus our efforts entirely on the red planet? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, as I truly want to know your perspective. If you have a passion for space mysteries and the incredible technology that takes us there, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate all notifications. By doing so, you will never miss our next journey into the deepest reaches of the cosmos. Please share this video with a friend who loves astronomy and help us spread the wonder of the universe. Thank you for watching this journey to the end, and I will see you at the next frontier.